So, today we are going to be talking about who we authentically are and who we think we are, because very often those two are not necessarily the same person. I'm going to get into why that is today. The reason it came up was actually from a very interesting conversation I had with a good friend of mine this morning about do we show up as who we truly are, and if we do, is that a good thing or a bad thing? So, finally, today I make it. I'm so excited to have you here in the room as well. Thank you so much. Feel free to use the chat as much as you want. I'm very excited to hear from you. So, today we had a conversation where a very good friend of mine said that if everyone showed up as their authentic selves, um, it would kind of be like shooting themselves in the foot, because if you just show up fully as your authentic self, not going to show up as a person um, that is necessarily your best face forward. And I don't fully agree with that, because I don't think there's a difference between who we authentically are and then all of the trauma and the demons and all of the things that we carry around with. Here, when I talk about demons, I don't mean in a spiritual sense. I mean about just like our dark sides, our shadows. Our shadows are not who we authentically are, but we tend to think that that's it, because those are the parts of ourselves that we like to hide. Those are the parts of ourselves that we don't want the world to see. We hide them. We run from them, and then we have this feeling that we're not being authentic to ourselves. But that has nothing to do with our authentic selves. Our authentic selves are not the things that we're trying to hide. The things we're trying to hide are the things that we haven't healed. And when we try to hide things and we try to not heal things, then it feels like something that we're carrying around with us. It feels like a burden. It feels like a heaviness or a darkness that we're carrying around with us. And that makes us think that it has something to do with our authentic identity, but it really, really doesn't. Who we used to be and who our past selves are and who we think we have an idea of who we are based on our past, that doesn't really necessarily have anything to do with who we authentically are. I would say that who we desire to be has more to do with our authentic expression than who we believe we are based on our past, based on how we grew up. We get conditioned, we get programmed. As soon as we enter this world, we're getting told who we're supposed to be. And as children, as small, young, very fresh and unnuanced human beings, we take a lot of that feedback as being true. So actually, as kids, as much as there's authenticity in kids, anything that has to do with like opinions and feelings that we're carrying around very often are conditioned and programmed. It's not necessarily who we actually truly are. And if we have this idea of who we truly are based on who we used to be, then we're carrying around a burden that is blocking us as obstacles from moving forward into a more authentic self. So when I say that our authentic expression has more to do with who we desire to be than who we used to be, it's because it has a way of moving us forward into our higher level, more elevated identity, which is more of an authentic expression. I like to think of it as being, if you thought of yourself before you had any programming whatsoever, in full abundance and in everything that you needed to have, then that would bring you closer to your authentic self. That being said, obviously we've been through a lot in life. We have experienced adversity that has helped us become the person that we are today. We've experienced things that create a sense of identity in terms of our values. Our values are really, really important when it comes to figuring out who we authentically are. And those values are very often created from what we lacked in our previous parts of our lives. So if you grow up poor, like in a family where you didn't have access to a lot of things, you might consider like making money, getting money to be a very, very important thing in your life. Obviously so. If you never got any attention when you're a kid, maybe what you want most in your life is become famous, right? Because we kind of want to get the thing that we felt we lacked, we want to have it in abundance. So figuring out who is it that I truly want to be from something deep inside of me? Who is it that I truly want to be if I do not consider what I lacked previously in my life? That being said, we should definitely go for everything that we want. If you want abundance of money, you should go for that. There's this idea that we shouldn't be allowed to desire material things, that we shouldn't be allowed to desire something that other people don't have. I don't feel that's of relevance really. If you want something, you should go for it. You don't have to justify for anyone why you want what you want. But once we can step into a more authentic version of ourselves, we can start aligning our energy, our personal internal energy, with that authentic expression. And when we're able to really show up in an authentic energy that is sourced from deep within, everything just flows more easily. We make better decisions. We understand our circumstances better. We set stronger boundaries. We stop trying to push things. We understand what direction that we want to get into. Because when we tap into that energy, we can feel every time something feels wrong based on who we truly are, it becomes really easy to make decisions. It becomes really easy to let go of things that we know are not serving us or others. It becomes really easy to let go of things like people pleasing and attachment to our comfort zone and relationships that aren't good for us. Every time we're able to really step into that true, authentic version of us, we can start completely changing our lives to a life that is more fulfilling, a life that is more full of joy, and our self leadership becomes so much more natural because we can simply just tap into, does this feel right authentically? Or does it feel like it is not aligned with my values, with my authentic expression, with my full identity? So I would really recommend in your personal development work that you really start tapping into who am I, not based on who did I used to be, but based on who do I want to be. And then start stepping into that person. And fully knowing and understanding that that is not about putting on a mask. It's not about showing up as someone that you're not. It's about showing up as the person that you were meant to be all along, but you got sidetracked throughout your life because your life was conditioned so much by other people that you didn't know how to find yourself. So I would really love to hear, especially if you're in the chat, let me know if there's something, if you feel like you actually know who you are. Because so many people don't. So many people have no idea who they truly are. They just kind of show up like they've always done, and they don't put a lot of attention into figuring out what makes me me. What are my deepest, truest values? Self-discovery journey, definitely. Self-discovery is really, really important in the personal development journey, because if we don't discover ourselves, then what is personal development even? Right? It's literally the core of this whole journey, of this whole process of developing ourselves, is discovering who we are. We are not taught, right? I don't know if any of you grew up being taught this is how you find out who you are. I for sure did not. I didn't see any guidebooks anywhere. I didn't take any classes in school. I didn't have any teachers that told me, oh, this is how you figure out who you are, right? So that's one of the reasons that I teach tapping into energy. When you tap into your own energy, and by that I mean tapping into emotions and then understanding which ones elevate me and which ones kind of pull me down, and which ones do I have a tendency to feel attached to. So our brains are really smart, and sometimes that's not a good thing. So we can get physically addicted to specific types of emotions that trigger hormones, but that aren't necessarily very comfortable emotions. So I don't know if you've ever met people who are just like, it seems like they're addicted to victimhood. it seems like they're addicted to feeling sad. It feels like they're addicted to, like, as soon as they get the chance, they will feel really bad about themselves, or they will kind of turn this whole environment into something negative. And the reason that happens is because if you've been considering yourself a victim your whole life, which many of us really do, we grow up with this sense of victimhood mentality very often because that's how you get attention as a kid, right? If you fall and hit yourself, you fall and hurt yourself as a kid, you'll get attention from your parents. Now, if you can use that as a tool when you're a child to go and just, I want attention from my mommy, then you're gonna be sad, or you're gonna be pulling on these negative emotions so that you can get attention. I don't know if you did that as kids. I did, definitely. It was my whole thing was like, okay, I want attention right now. How can I, turn this into something that's, makes me a victim? And when you do that, then the body becomes addicted to the hormone that is released from the brain when this happens, which means that if you don't handle your own victimhood, if you don't handle the situation of almost, it feels like a physical addiction because it is. If you don't handle that, then this is who you're going to be. That is what your life is going to be about. It's about you being a victim. The thing, you can't be a victim and a champion at the same time. But our authentic selves, in my view, is always going to be the champion. The victim is the conditioned, programmed child. The champion is the one who rises up, who finds themselves, who develop into the stronger, more elevated version of ourselves. The one who's able to overcome adversity. I'm on the journey to discover who I am, aware of my emotions, but about my energy, I'm struggling. Yeah, definitely. Well, my energy can be many things. When I talk about energy, it is really tapping into the emotions. There's these graphs that you can find online that gives you an indication of what kind of emotions are high frequency energies and which ones are low frequency energies. And you'll see that the high frequency energies are love and gratitude and joy and these very happy emotions. You can very often clearly see it in other people. If someone shows up in their full happiness, in their full joy, in their full gratitude, you get drawn to them, right? It's magnetic. You want to be part of that. You want to be in that space. But if someone shows up and they're angry or they're resentful and they're frustrated and they're all of these other, negative, low vibrating emotions, you kind of feel like you don't want to be part of that unless you're addicted to it. So once you start tapping into, okay, what things and experiences and people put me in a higher frequency emotion? What are situations that I can put myself in that puts me in a higher frequency emotion? And then just making that happen more often. And when it happens, just pay attention to it, soak it up, sit with it, make yourself feel it, make yourself pay attention to where do you feel it, how does it feel, how would you describe it, and really soak it up. Because once you do that, it becomes easier to tap into it in the future. And also what I've realized is that it spreads. You might start feeling joy as like a tiny little, pinch. Oh, my dog is going to open the door now. It's a bit loud. I hope that's not too loud. So when those emotions, when you start paying attention to them, they might be like smaller, maybe you just feel it just like very small place in your chest. And then the more you dig into them and the more you allow yourself to feel them and the more you pay attention to them and the more you trigger them throughout the day, the more it kind of spreads out. So now I very often feel it in my arms, I feel it in my fingertips, sometimes feel it in my nose. It can just literally spread throughout your body and you can hold it for a longer time as well. So once you really start tapping into this energetic frequency and really feeling those high vibrating emotions, then you will find that your energetic frequency just in general increases because it can become so much easier for you to tap into it. That being said, it doesn't mean that you should never feel low vibration emotions like anger, fear, frustration, um, anything that makes you feel unhappy in any sense. Because those emotions, if you force yourself to not feel them, you still carry them around, but it's like it's being contained. It's like you've shoved it down at the bottom of a box, but you're still carrying around that box. And the more you shove it down, the more that feeling wants to get out. So you still carry it around. The only way to really truly heal those types of emotions is by allowing yourself to feel them, allowing yourself to understand them, and then releasing them. Because once you can feel it, then you can release it. And then you don't have to carry it around. And I know obviously with things like grief, when you lose someone that you love, it's very hard to just release that, right? It takes attention. It takes allowing yourself to be sad about it. But one thing that really helps is tapping into that love that you feel. Because if you're really grieving someone, it's because you love them so much. And when you allow yourself to feel that love along with the grief, then you automatically just increase the energy of that whole experience. So that was kind of a sidetrack in terms of talking about identity and authenticity. But the more you allow yourself to really tap into your energy, and the more you allow yourself to really feel the emotions of who you are and experiencing these emotions on a new level, you also start paying attention to, when does something not feel right? You know, when does this situation not feel good? And then trusting yourself to say, this is not for me, right? Removing yourself from a situation where you start feeling like, this is not good. If someone is giving you creepy vibes, but they have a smile on their face and they seem like really good people, just trust your creepy vibe and be like, okay, I'm going to have some distance to you. So it can also be in terms of a decision, right? Does this going forward, let's say you have to go either in this direction or that direction. It can be with your business, it can be with a relationship, it can be with so many different things. You imagine yourself being at a crossroads, and then you say, okay, this direction is this decision, or I can make the other decision and go in this direction. And you just kind of sense it, or you just feel it for a little bit. Which one do I want to go into? Which one feels good and which one feels bad? And we can't always explain, why does something feel good? Why does something feel bad? But trusting it is the important part. When you make your decision based on your energy and how you feel about something, it becomes very easy to not regret that decision, because you know that you made it based on what felt right to you. So when you start doing this work of working with your energy and with your emotions, and you incorporate that into your decision making processes, it becomes so much easier to figure out who you really are. Who are you authentically? What is really important to me? What are my true internal values? What feels right and what doesn't feel right, based on seeing myself in my highest possible level. This work includes doing a lot of like self-love and releasing feelings of guilt and shame. If you feel like guilt, shame, fear are the core of your decision making, then you're not making authentic decisions. Fear, shame, guilt should not be involved in your decision making. And if you feel that I'm at this crossroads and I want to make this decision because this decision is scary, take the scary one, right? Take the one that makes you uncomfortable. Take the one that you don't want to do, because you don't want to leave your comfort zone. That's another part of getting to know who you truly are, stepping outside of your comfort zone. That's also the part that builds your confidence. It's the part that gets you to really know yourself. Because if you're only always comfortable, you can't really get to know yourself and your authentic self. And if you see yourself in a light where you are blaming yourself, you're feeling guilt, you're feeling shame, you feel like you're not deserving of what your highest level self would be deserving of, then again, it has nothing to do with your authentic self. So if these are things that you're struggling with, if you have a low sense of self, if you have this feeling like you're not deserving of all the best things in life, then that is one of the first things to work on this self-discovery journey. Get to a space where you love yourself so much that nobody else and nothing else can come and tell you that you're not worthy. If you're worthy, if you know that you're worthy of the best things in life, that's when you can start seeing yourself and your true authentic self in a much higher light. And it gets so much more clear to you when you're standing on this crossroads. What would my highest, most authentic self do in this situation? Which one would they take? And you take the one that the highest, most authentic, strongest, most confident, amazing version of you would take. So you explained it in simple words, easy to understand and feel. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to hear that. Let me know if you have any questions, because if not, I'm just gonna wrap this up and be ready for next time. Remember that you can always also submit questions in between these calls with the form that I send out. So if you have any questions, you can also always put it in the chat while we're here. And if there's nothing else, I'm just gonna say thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate you. I know that spending your afternoons, there's a lot of things that you could be doing, and you chose to spend it here with me. I'm very appreciative of that. Okay, nothing else. Well, great. Thank you so much for today then.